Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lytham Partners Spring 2022 Investor Conference. My name is Adam Lowensteiner, Vice President at Lytham Partners. Thank you for joining us here today for a panel discussion hosted by Aurora Spine, titled Simplifying the Complex, a panel discussion with doctors that use Aurora Spine Products. We are joined by great doctors from different industry backgrounds to get some insights on how they use Aurora Spine and how they see the industry evolving. I've gathered some topics that are of interest to investors today and hope to learn greatly from our panelists. Today, joining us are Trent Northcutt, CEO and co-founder of Aurora Spine, Dr. Michael Stoffman, a neurosurgeon in Buffalo, New York, and a clinical assistant professor in neurosurgery at Buffalo Neurosurgery State University of New York, and Dr. Stephen Falowski, a neurosurgeon at Advanced Surgery Center of Lancaster. Before we begin with the discussion, I would like to have each of you introduce yourselves and provide a brief description on your background. Trent, we can start with you, and then Michael, and then Stephen.
Thank you, Adam. It's a pleasure to be here today, and I appreciate everyone's time and consideration for this webcast that we're putting out. Dr. Falowski, thank you so much for participating in this event, and Dr. Stoffman, thank you so much for participating here today. So Aurora Spine was founded off of the beginnings of a single product called the ZIP device, which is going to be one of the products we're going to talk about today. The ZIP device is a screwless procedure. It's approach to spine fusion that allows the patient to have a minimally invasive screwless approach to lumbar fusion. Both my guests here today, Dr. Falowski and Dr. Stoffman, are experts in spinal surgery. And with the ZIP device, this is something that we wanted to bring into the market and be led by innovation. Aurora Spine is a publicly traded company on the Toronto Exchange and is located in Carlsbad, California. Myself and my business partner, Laszlo Gramzegi, my chief technical officer, are the co-founders of Aurora Spine and Pay. Adam, did you have anything else you wanted to add to that?
No, also it's traded on the OTCQB and under ASAPF. And then we'll pass it off to Dr. Stoffman for an intro and a little background about yourself.
Dr. Stoffman, please tell me about it. Thank you.
Thanks, Adam and Trent, for inviting me to participate in today's webcast. I am originally from Canada. I grew up and actually was educated, received my undergraduate education at the University of Toronto and my medical school at the University of Ottawa. I then went to Montreal, where I was at McGill University in the Montreal Neurological Institute, where I was an intern. And then I completed my residency in New Haven, Connecticut. And after spending my residency years at Yale University, I decided to stay in practice in the States. And I moved to Buffalo about 16 years ago, and I've been in practice in Buffalo. And I'm a faculty member at University of Buffalo Neurosurgery Department, which is one of the largest academic neurosurgery practices in the country. As was already mentioned, like Dr. Falowski, my practice is really dedicated to minimally invasive spine surgery, and I have very keen interest in Aurora Spine because of Aurora's interest in minimally invasive spine surgery. And obviously we'll talk about that later on.
Thank you, Dr. Stoffman. I appreciate that. Dr. Falowski, please tell us about yourself.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Trent. So I'm Dr. Stephen Falowski. I'm a neurosurgeon out of the Philadelphia area. Interesting background for me is that I was dual trained in neurosurgery, which means I have two specialty trainings. One is in complex spine, so doing very large open procedures with fusion and screws and pedicle screws from thoracic to sacrum. But then I also did an additional fellowship in functional neurosurgery, which looks at minimally invasive type procedures and procedures that are meant not to pursue spinal surgery. So I trained in my complex spine at Thomas Jefferson University in Philadelphia, which was, we jokingly say, is like the spine mecca of the country, but then also went to Rush University in Chicago to train on minimally invasive procedures. It's interesting because when I first came out in practice, I really thought that my practice was going to be very much surrounding open spinal fusions and screw procedures, these larger procedures. But I quickly realized within 1 to 2 years of being in practice that I had better outcomes with minimally invasive procedures, and my patients actually liked them better. So one of the reasons I'm very happy to be here working with Aurora and with you, Trent, is that Aurora is actually leading the way in a lot of these minimally invasive screwless type procedures, which is exactly what I think the field is actually pushing to now. And if only 10 years ago, people would have jumped on the wagon with me, we could have been there a while ago, but I'm glad we're finally getting there now. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pawlowski. I appreciate that background. I'm going to put up an image here behind me, which is one of the first x-rays that we ever put out as a company. This is our ZIP product, our ZIP procedure. And on this background here, it shows that the ZIP implant is put in here. As everyone can see in this image, is that it is a screwless procedure. It's a minimally invasive. Both of you gentlemen have used this product in your practice and have seen good clinical results from this. Luckily for Aurora, we were able to get started in a multi-center study with the ZIP product, and we were able to cross this product into not only ortho and neurospine practices, but also into pain interventional markets. Dr. Pawlowski, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I think one of the great things about the ZIP device is that it can be placed by both spine surgeons, orthopedic and neurosurgery, but also interventional pain physicians. And I think there's a growing need in the interventional pain space to have these minimally invasive type procedures where spine surgeons are either not willing to go in to do the larger surgeries, or maybe patients are not candidates for some of these larger surgeries, especially if they have medical comorbidities. So being able to put this in any one of those treating physicians' hands makes it more amenable to actually be available to more patients.
I remember, Dr. Stoffman, that when you and I first met, we talked about the ZIP product and the ZIP procedure as an alternative to pedicle screws. And obviously your practice is a very large practice that deals a lot with complex procedures. Most of it is a minimally invasive practice. Tell our audience a little bit about your experience with your operating room, but of course your experience with the ZIP device.
Well, the ZIP device has really opened up a whole new world for us, because there are some patients, as Dr. Pawlowski already mentioned, who just for medical reasons can't have larger procedures. And the ZIP device has let us operate on some of these people because it's an easier, faster operation. And I've just been totally impressed with some of the personal results that we've had with patients who just wouldn't have done that well with a larger operation, who've just benefited really, really nicely from using the ZIP device.
And Dr. Pawlowski, you've now been part of, at least a dozen or more training programs across the country, everywhere from Seattle to Texas to California. You've been all over the country, and I know that you've seen some really good hands on this product. What is your feeling about the trainings and how these trainings have been going on the ZIP product?
I think it's been going great. I mean, we've seen that with the training programs, the amount of people who want to be trained and the amount of physicians that we're able to train is just growing. It shows that there's the interest that is there. But I also think it's because the physicians are starting to see the outcomes. We're out there now in these communities. These physicians are already doing it. They speak and other physicians hear about it. Not to mention the fact that we've already launched, the large multi-center trial directly looking at the ZIP device to treat spinal stenosis and degenerative changes in these patients, and that research study largely includes interventional pain physicians. So obviously, I think that it's built very much a lot of interest, and I think the skill set is there, and we've seen that now through these multiple training programs that continue to grow.
That's right. I'm going to put on a quick animation on this, and both of you feel free to jump in. So I'm going to put an animation on the background here that shows the ZIP in a very simplistic 3D animation, but it shows how easy the product performs and how easily it's performed in this animation. So I wanted just to kind of walk through this and please, Dr. Stoffman, walk us through a little bit how the ZIP device goes in from your perspective.
Well, this shows the basically identifying the space between the spinous processes and then measuring what this distance is and to pick the appropriate implant. And once you know the size that's needed, the implant can be put together, which is very simple to do. And then the implant is slid in, which we'll see in the next picture here.
And real quick, Dr. Pulowski, putting in this bone graft material, both of you gentlemen can comment on this, as putting bone in it to promote fusion. This is a key part of the procedure, correct?
Correct. I mean, you can see that what that syringe was doing was putting in bone graft material to promote bony fusion across the spinous process. We place additional bone graft material after it's in place. This is why biomechanically it's going to have the strength of even pedicle screw fixation or true screw procedures, but it's minimally invasive in a screwless procedure where we can actually promote the same bony fusion.
That's right. Thank you so much for that. That was a great overview from you guys to talk about how the implant is put in. We are really keen on this multi-center study. We are underway with this device in a multi-center study. We've got 100 patients that we're going to be following this year. We're going to be doing years 1, 2 with the options of years 3 and 4 and 5. Very exciting times for Aurora in this particular product. Any final thoughts on the ZIP product or the ZIP procedure from your gentleman's perspective?
Go ahead, Steve.
Sure, absolutely. I think this is being put to the forefront for a minimally invasive procedure that is well in line with what we view as the codes for fusion, by actually being still minimally invasive but a semi-open procedure. And then just the design of the device makes it amendable that interventional pain physicians can use it. They can treat and reach many more patients than just the spine surgeons alone. So I think we're at the forefront now of basically innovation on interspinous fusion because of this.
And any final thoughts from you, Dr. Stoffman, before we move on to the next topic?
Yeah, I would just dovetail onto what Dr. Pulowski said by saying that I think this market here and the next technology that we're going to discuss is going to be one of the few areas where we'll probably have double-digit growth in the next few years. I think we're just at the very beginning of this technology and really understanding how it can be applied.
Thank you. Yeah, we see a real good positive outcome here with the ZIP device from a company standpoint. The company has seen really strong growth from last year into this year. It is the flagship product that we started Aurora with, and with this device, it's now opened up new doors with us thanks to the group that Dr. Pulowski and many doctors that he's been working with across the country, the support of Dr. Stoffman and his faculty to be able to help us take this product up to the next level. So I thank you both for your support in this particular product and device. And we are excited about as we continue to release the clinical outcomes and get evidence-based medicine based on this product released to the masses for them to review for themselves. On the next segment here, I'm going to talk about the SiLO product. The SiLO procedure is our SI joint Allograf system. And with this system, it's actually we're going to tail off on it where we discuss where the market is going to be trending towards. So let me get my next slide up here for SI joint, which is called the SiLO. This is a bit of an animation that's going to play. It's going to talk a little bit about it, but I'm going to show a couple different slides here. But this implant is a 12 millimeter by 20 millimeter length Allograf system. And this implant is about the size of a penny, if you will, sideways. You make a very small incision. Both of these implants that we've talked about today are very small, minimally invasive approach procedures. Both of these procedures are driven for outpatient procedures and outcomes. I'll start with you, Dr. Pulowski. Why don't you tell me a little bit about your experience in the SI joint market, and then also talk about your experience with the SiLO product.
Yeah, absolutely, Trent. I mean, I think SI fusions have been around for 15, 20 years. The problem is they were primarily done by spine surgeons with mostly invasive type procedures, putting in titanium screws across the joint, which could be somewhat morbid procedures in the sense that patients were non-weight bearing afterward. They came with a slightly higher risk profile for nerve injury or hematomas. And now we have this advent of posterior approach, which is like directly over the joint, minimally invasive, all done through a tube where we can place grafts. What's nice about the SiLO device is it's specifically designed that it's not just placed into the joint, it's placed into the joint with the idea that it's going to create a fusion. Because of that, we have to drill the pat for it. And then the shape of it is such that it actually locks it into place and promotes a bony fusion, which is exactly what we're looking for when we're trying to fuse this SI joint. The best way to think about the SI joint is it's where your spine meets your pelvis, and it's supposed to be essentially an immobile joint, meaning it's not supposed to move. But in some patients with different risk factors, they can have movement in that joint. The SiLO device is actually a minimally invasive outpatient procedure, all done percutaneously or through a tube, that can restore that non-mobility to the joint.
Thank you, Dr. Pawlowski. And Dr. Stoffman, you were the first doctor in the country to use the SiLO device. You were involved with the company discussing how the design of the implant was made and the instrumentation that went along with this, because we wanted to get it right. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about your experience with the SiLO system and also your experiences in your feelings about the SI joint market?
Well, the development process has been really fantastic, and I think we have a product right now which is very easy to use. We have very reproducible results. The patients are doing extremely well, and as I said before, there's more and more patients we're identifying who are candidates for this, and it's pretty clear to me that there's going to be tremendous growth in the next few years with the SiLO because of how easy it is to use.
One of the things that we've heard from many of the doctors that we've worked with across the country is that the patients get a real quick, easy relief, almost instant relief, because it's an outpatient-driven product. Dr. Pawlowski, why don't you share some of that with our audience about how the patients feel and your experience with these patients?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I said, it's supposed to be an immobile joint, a joint that doesn't move. But when you do get that movement in the joint, that's what causes the pain. We have two goals with these type of procedures. One is immediate fixation, stop the movement in the joint, but then long-term fusion to make sure that the bony overgrowth and the fusion of the joint prevents it from long-term from moving. What's unique about the SiLO device is based on its shape and how it's actually placed into the joint is it gives you that immediate fixation. So patients have immediate relief as soon as they're off the table. They may have some minor surgical discomfort for a day or two, but they can look forward to that immediate fixation, so that immediate relief from their pain. And it's a minimally invasive outpatient procedure as compared to the other SI fusions we've been doing for 20 years.
Thank you for that. And the SiLO procedure has been formed by both of you. You've also been part of training and education with it. How do you feel it would fit in the hands of other doctors in these training programs? So the first time they've ever done one of these procedures, what do you think the ease of use is to get doctors familiar and comfortable with this type of an approach? Dr. Stoffman?
Well, I think if we compare this procedure to a lot of the other procedures that are out there, it's just simply more intuitive. As interventional pain management physicians, physiatrists, neurosurgeons, orthopedic spine surgeons, we're used to thinking about the spine or the sacroiliac joint, in this perspective, and as opposed to coming from the side, which a lot of the competitors do. So I think it's more intuitive, and most importantly, there's a patient safety factor here. I think, compared to a lot of the other procedures, there's a much higher risk of a vascular injury. A significant vascular injury is really, is potentially catastrophic. And with this posterior approach and with the way the instruments have been designed for SiLO, I think we have something that is easy, with good outcomes, and really importantly, safe.
I think I'll just add to that, Dr. Stoffman, that I think one of the things that makes the procedure intuitive now for interventional pain physicians, it's done very similar to how they've done injections or what we call radiofrequency burning of the nerves in that joint, where this entire procedure is based around getting a small wire into the joint, which is exactly what they do with their needle approaches. And then everything goes over that first initial wire. So this makes it very amendable to the intervention pain space, because this is very much in their wheelhouse of how they've actually entered this joint before.
Do you guys see this procedure growing across the country and outside of the United States as a procedure of choice for physicians around the country and around the world?
I would say absolutely. Sorry, go ahead, Dr.
Yeah,
Stoffman.
no, I was going to use the same word. Yeah, absolutely. I think, we know that until people started understanding, in the 1940s, that disc herniations were causing a lot of pain, up to those years, everyone thought that the sacroiliac joint actually was the main pain generator. And for many years, we kind of blamed the discs of the spine as the cause of all the problems. And the pendulum's now swinging back the other way. And people are really starting to recognize that at least 20%, maybe more, 30% of low back pain in the community out there in the real world is caused by a sacroiliac joint that's unhealthy. So these are huge numbers. I mean, there's millions and millions of people with back pain. And, in the United States, we spend about $100 billion a year looking at direct and indirect costs. So this is a very expensive problem. And if 20 to 30% of that number is got to be related to sacroiliac joint pain and sacroiliac joint treatment, it's not hard to understand that the growth potential here is absolutely astronomical.
I'm going to show another animation. Actually video behind me. It's one of our training labs that we performed. Dr. Fulowski was the moderator at this event. We had a sold out at capacity event where we had 3 cadaver stations. I'll touch on this and we can talk about that. And I know that Adam has a few things he wants to talk about before we get to the half an hour point on this presentation. So here, I'll just kind of start it. This was the training program that we had in Dallas, Texas. We have national labs that are going on every quarter throughout the rest of this year, training more and more doctors. Last year, we trained over 300 doctors. This year, we plan on training over 400 doctors this coming year. And this is an example of what a training course looks like. Full participants here. These are doctors from around the country. There's the good-looking fellow right there, Dr. Fulowski, on the stage. Talking about what we're doing, and there's Dr. Rasso presenting the anatomy and doing didactics and doing the full presentations, and this lab went really well. And I know Dr. Stoffman has also participated in these labs with us and has joined us in education. Education is key, right, gentlemen? We have to keep training these doctors and getting these doctors to the next level, because the ZIP procedure as a screwless approach and the silo procedure as a minimally invasive outpatient product both procedures are the wave of outpatient surgery, correct?
Absolutely.
Dr. Stoffman?
Yeah, it's simply put, this is the future. This is going to be the future of the vast majority of patients' problems, and the way we can treat many patients with back pain. And the education piece is so important because, for whatever reason, even for people like Dr. Fulowski and I that did traditional neurosurgery residencies, people really were not educating us on what the sacroiliac joint was, or even screwless based technology like the ZIP. So, a lot of people finish their training, even though we all spend many years medically training and learning how to do these procedures. A lot of us don't really know what's out there until we start to get out and practice. So the education piece that is going on now is so important to bring, young physicians or physicians that don't have these experiences to be able to perform these procedures.
Thank you both for this. I appreciate your feedback and contribution to what Aurora is doing and the advancements of Aurora's technology and its platform. It always starts right where it begins, and it's with the doctor in the doctor's hands. So we're grateful for both of you and really excited about the future with us all working together. Adam?
Thanks, Trent. I think we're bumping up against the 30 minutes, but I think if we can conclude, with Dr. Stoffman and Dr. Fulowski, I would just love to know. I think the investor base also would love to know is, the industry has been evolving, and Trent mentions to investors about pain interventionalists, and maybe each of you can discuss a little bit how that's evolving. It's still very new, very fresh, and how long that takes to kind of really normalize in the industry. So I'll start with Dr. Stockman.
Well, I think the bottom line is, and Dr. Falowski probably knows more about this than I do, but there's more interventional pain physicians, physiatrists in the country than there are neurosurgeons. Is that's correct, right, Dr. Falowski?
Oh, absolutely.
So just from a pure numbers perspective, I think why Aurora is situated so well is that they're good. The technologies that are being developed can be used not just by surgeons, but by the interventional pain physiatry world. So when we talk about growth, of course there's going to be growth because there's so many more healthcare providers that can use these technologies.
I think that I just want to add to that. There's a paradigm shift that's happening now with interventional pain physicians and spine surgeons. If you go back in like the history of medicine, just look at cardiology. Cardiothoracic surgeons were doing all the big open bypass procedures on the heart. Eventually, cardiologists and interventional radiologists started doing stents through minimally invasive procedures. And that grew the field. That is exactly what's happening now in the spine world. Spine surgeons have been doing these large open procedures, and now these other minimally invasive procedures are coming together and being embraced by interventional pain physicians who have a skill set to actually do this. And just like Dr. Stoffman said, there's many more interventional pain physicians out there than there are spine surgeons, and they're the ones who are actually seeing these patients. Things take time, though. They usually say things in medicine can take anywhere from 5 to 10 years to kind of unfold and become more mainstream. So I think where we actually are with some of these therapies with Silo and with Zip, we've come a long way in a very short period of time when you think about how things unfold in medicine.
That's well said by both of you. I appreciate that. It is absolutely a change in time. We are seeing more doctors that are getting out there and getting involved in training programs and educational programs. In my very first conversation with you, Dr. Falowski, we hit it off instantly and talked exactly about this. And I know that you and Dr. Stockman both believe in this, that we should be training people, educating, and growing the technology in an academic setting and an educational setting. Adam?
Great. I think we'll wrap it up here. I appreciate everyone for taking the time, and for our panelists. Thank you, Dr. Stoffman. Thank you, Dr. Falowski. Thank you, Trent. For any of our listeners that would like to learn more about Aurora Spine, please feel free to reach out to Trent or myself or any member of the Lytham Partners team. So thank you again, everybody. This was fun, and have a great day.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.